So what you're going to need for this workshop, firstly, a Magnific account, which I hope all of you have one. If you guys need some credits or don't have a plan yet, you can use code Jamey, and they're giving us some credits to use today. Secondly, you'll need to scan this QR code, and it's going to pull up a Notion document. And that just has all of the prompts I'm using today, so I don't have to speak them out to you, so you can copy and paste them. And I'll keep this QR code up at different points, so don't worry if you don't get it right now. It'll also have some photos too. So the third thing that you need is a photo of a product. Now, if you want to follow along to a T with me, I have the photos that I'm using, I believe all of them on this Notion. So you can download them and use them with me one-to-one, or you can choose any product that you want. So you can do your favorite snack, you could do a supplement, you could do a makeup product. I also encourage you to try and use a photo that's not so perfect. So don't just go and find a PNG. If you have a photo of you could even take a photo of your water bottle right now if you want to. Because one of the first things I do in this workshop is show you how to take a kind of unsavory photo like this and turn it into a product photo. Yeah, the only thing I ask, especially if you're a beginner, if you're an expert, maybe you can do this, don't do anything too wacky because I'm not going to have time to walk around and help troubleshoot. And the more custom and unique these products are, you got to get a little bit more creative with your prompts. So I would say keep it simple if this is your first time doing AI product photography, because these will throw you for a loop. All right, I'm going to give everyone to take a second to get a spaces set up, get a product photo, but I'm going to properly introduce myself, talk about myself, my favorite thing. So again, hello, my name is Jamey. I am also known as Tech Bimbo if you follow me on X. And I don't know about you guys, but I find it harder and harder to introduce myself almost every week. Show of hands, do any other creatives feel that way? When someone asks you, what do you do? Is it just a blank stare now? I feel that way a lot. So I feel the lines are really starting to blur when it comes to my role and what I do every day. But anyway, if you've never come across my content before, I am a brand designer and creative director, and I use AI every single day, and I make a ton of content talking about it. So my background is primarily in early stage tech and D2C, and I now split my time between still doing those actual branding and creative services, and then helping companies and individuals bring generative AI into their creative workflows, so doing workshops and talks just like this. So I have gone to work with loads and loads of people and teams across every intersection of design, business, strategy, AI. So I have a supplement company, which is called Portal. That's kind of my nights and weekends thing, and it's how I got into e-commerce. I also lead social at Pomeli by Google, which is kind of an e-commerce adjacent AI tool. I do content, and then I also teach creatives how to be AI creative directors with a course. So a lot of things. So my goal for the next 55 minutes is to show you some of my workflows that I use when working with e-commerce clients and what they actually find super valuable. Again, Rourke talked about a lot of this already today. And what they're hiring for. So I personally think this specific niche of commercial work is one of the most effective uses of AI, and it's very slept on. It's not the most fantastical or maybe even the most interesting to some of you, but AI does a really killer job at making stuff like this. And I think if you're trying to make money, as Rourke said, this is an amazing niche to kind of focus on or start exploring as a creative. So I'm going to try my best to cover everything from product photography to UGC and even making static ads with AI as well, hopefully in this 55 minutes. And yeah, I'm going to try and teach you guys all my tips and tricks to ensure that you can get really realistic outputs and workflows and outputs that are very legible to clients as well. So the core of what I'm showing today is interacting directly with the best models for realism. So my hope is that even if the frameworks and tips that I'm teaching you are ones that you know, you can start to kind of see how they can be applied to this niche. And then depending on when we finish, I'd love to do some Q&A at the end. We can talk all things AI and e-com, and if not, you guys can just kind of find me later. So again, at this point, if you came in a little bit late, you can scan this QR code. It has a Notion document with all the prompts we're going to use today and the images I'm going to be using, but you just need an image of a product. And then today, when I show Magnific on the screen, it's going to be in the Spaces feature. I just like showing my workflows like that, but feel free to use any modality of Magnific that you want. Yeah, I think we're ready to get started. Okay, so in case you don't know how to make a Spaces file, I made this little GIF for you guys. So from the home screen, just hit the Spaces button, create a file, and then just upload whatever images or media that you're going to be using. And then just to quickly show what the notion is again, the purple prompts are the exact prompts that I'm using with specific descriptions of the products that I'm trying to make images of. And then the white ones are the base prompts. Again, if you're more advanced, feel free to kind of like reconstruct or edit them as you want. And then the only thing to note with the white prompts is that there are some like placeholders, like describe your product. Sometimes there's placeholders for color and stuff like that. So if you are going to be not using the exact product that I'm using, just make sure to read them through quickly and then adjust it to what makes sense for what you're making. All right, everyone ready? Good? Okay. All right, so the first technique we're going to be doing today is creating a white background studio shot from an iPhone photo or a regular phone photo. This is going to be really important for our generations going forward because we want to have the cleanest, simplest, most straightforward image of our product. If you already have an image with a very clean white background, you can try this prompt, but swap for a black background, or you can just kind of watch us do this one. So to do this, you're going to take your image and create an image node. Then you're going to paste in your prompt from the Notion. So again, purple if you want to do the images I'm doing, and white if you want to do your own. And then you're going to fill out the product description if needed. Is anyone new to Spaces, by the way? Okay. All right. Ask your neighbor for help if you get stuck. I'm going to try my best to be slow. So you're just creating an image node, pasting in the prompt, and connecting one image right now. The next step is very, very important. So you're going to want to select GPT-2 as your model. So it might be set to auto right now, so you're going to go, I guess you can't see my mouse, can you? You're going to select auto and then select GPT-2 as the model. You're going to want to make the quality high and then the resolution 2K. And then your output, we just need one generation, so it's going to be X1. Now you can also do this with Nano Banana 2 or Pro and get a very similar result, but in my testing in the last couple of days, GPT-2 has been kind of superior. So while everyone's generations are running, I want to explain a few important but simple choices that we made when creating this image. So firstly, why are we using GPT-2? And why is it so uniquely good at product photography like this? So GPT-2 is a multimodal model. And now I'm non-technical, so if anyone technical wants to like really explain this to me later, please feel free, but this is just the simplest explanation I can come up with. So it's a multimodal model, which means it can actually think and understand what you're asking for. And this is different from diffusion models like most notably Midjourney or Flux that are more optimized for aesthetics. Basically, if you aren't using a multimodal model, you should not expect it to keep your subject or especially your text the same. So whenever you see something that involves extreme precision or instruction, like the mock-up I have on here or anything with text, these are also images I made of myself here. At least for now, that is going to be a multimodal model like Nano Banana or GPT-2. Second, I want to break down the prompt that I'm using. And I have this little framework that I came up with actually pretty recently that I'm excited about. But when I'm prompting for specific things, like I really want a certain output, like the last thing we just did, I am unconsciously at this point and sometimes consciously doing what I call the sword framework. So S is for subject, W is for where, O is for orientation, so that's like the pose or the angle or where the subject is like sitting in the frame. R is for rendering, so that has anything to do with like the camera, lighting, texture, if it's going to be realistic versus illustrative, things like that. And then D is for directives. That's the stuff that like you're telling the model to do, kind of like the common sense checks, any rules, constraints, instructions, if you will. Now, for a lot of us, I think like half the room that is already really good at AI, very professional, this may be super obvious. But when you start to think about working with e-commerce clients or non-AI native teams, having a super legible framework like this can be really helpful when you start to do like shot lists and write out briefs, whether it's for like individual images or entire campaigns. And I found the more upfront work you can do here with the client, the less headaches you're going to have. If I've learned anything from working with e-commerce clients, that even though some of this work I'm showing today is quite easy or simple once you get the hang of it, when you try and start doing things like retroactively or like changing the background after you already have like the image done, or changing multiple things at one time because you changed your sword, essentially, that's when things start to get really complex and break, and you start to kind of like lose a little bit of control of the process. So if a client comes to you and says like, I want product photography, try and like do this with them, so then they aren't frustrated, when they don't get what they want, and then you don't have to continuously like prompt until you get what they have in their head. So I'll break down this prompt a little bit more in detail here. So here we have our subject. It's a matte black supplement jar with metallic text. Next we have our where, which is a white photo studio environment. The orientation is kind of sneaky here. So you may think saying product photography shot is kind of obvious, but it's actually sort of a shortcut that we're giving the model. The model knows that product photography shots are typically very high quality, very photorealistic. They're usually straight on, not very obscured or abstract. So instead of having to say like centered in the frame, not blurry, clear text, whatever that might be, saying the phrase product photography shot just does that for us. So our rendering aspect are these details here. So ultra high quality, strong directional natural light, and the camera type and the style of the image. And then lastly, we have our direction. Now, this paragraph here is actually what I call my prompt booster, or one of my prompt boosters. And I basically throw this on any generation where I'm dealing with text or logo or product consistency. This basically just says, don't change anything. And I found it definitely helps your generations go more as planned in my testing. This stuff is still, for whatever reason, like not super obvious or common sense to the models. So every single prompt, I just like throw this on. I have like the same sort of setup for when I do like faces, and this is like really, really helpful. So save this prompt for later. Yeah, okay, show of hands. Has everyone had their generations come back? Or are we still loading? No, still loading? Okay. The Wi-Fi is slow? Yeah. Is it like going though? Are we all on Wi-Fi? Okay. All right. I'm gonna move forward. Well, yeah, 15 minutes. Okay, I'm gonna move forward. All right. So hopefully everything went right. If eventually when your product loads, hopefully the image you get should look something like this. So there's pretty good consistency on the shape, the size, logo, font, color. I'm kind of kicking myself. I wish I brought, I didn't think to actually bring a jar with me today, but if I could show you in person, this is exactly what it looks like. All right, so the next technique we're going to do is an editorial image via a style reference. So to start, if you want to follow along exactly with me, you can go back to that Notion page. You can scroll down like 2 images, and you can find this image and download it. Again, if you're in the more professional tier, please feel free to go crazy. Find any inspiration image that you want. But if you're a beginner, I'd recommend staying with me. So yeah, just download this image, upload it to your space, and then you're going to create another image node. And you're going to connect your white background photo now. Instead of your potentially messy photo that you started with, you're going to take the white background photo, you're going to take this new style photo, and you're going to connect it to a new image node. And the prompt we're going to use should be the second prompt on the Notion, I believe. It's create an image of the product in the first photo in the same style as the second reference photo. And then make sure that you include that prompt booster as well. And then one note, you're going to want to make sure that the style photo is the second photo in your flow or node, because we are referring to it as the second photo. So just make sure that that is lined up correctly. And then again, we're going to do one generation in 2K, high quality, GPT-2. So make sure it's GPT-2. Okay. All right. Yeah. It just loaded. Okay. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, when I was writing this workshop, I was like, I can't decide how like screen share I want to be. So we'll see. We'll see if I shot myself in the foot. All right, hopefully while your generations are running, we have another 2 minutes. But I want to take this opportunity to walk through one of my 5 principles for using AI. And again, this is something I tell my students, my clients, everyone so many times a day. And it's that an image is worth 1,000 words. And I have a little exercise to actually prove it. So I want you to try and describe the style of this image in extreme detail. So I'll give you guys like 10 seconds. Just think in your head. How would you maybe like prompt this? All right, got it? So a lot of us probably got something like this. So a perfume bottle in an editorial studio environment, light gray to dark blue gradient background with a shiny reflective floor. Now, if you're like a killer creative director and you're really good, you might start to get into the details of like the effects, like subtle motion blur. It's around the perimeter of the bottle. The photo is teeming with energy, short focal length or long focal length. I actually didn't double check what that was. The backdrop feels far away, straight on shot with flat, even light. And that might even take you a few minutes to kind of do. Now, this is what happens when we give it to an LLM. So we get a result like this. And you can see, I don't even know if you guys can read this. I can barely read this. There is tons of stuff we're missing. So there's all this latent data in this image on the style, the mood, lighting, color. Everything that we want to extract from it is already inside of this image. And dealing with all this data as text, which is like what this would be, is just totally inefficient for you and the model, especially as you start to do more complex workflows. Like, imagine if you want to do a combo of 2 images as a prompt, and like how many variables and competing descriptions that you might be working with. So it's just really hard to do this stuff kind of manually. Now, I want to say this kind of reverse engineered prompting can work for e-com specifically, because a lot of the use cases that you use for product photography and UGC are often, pretty simple, constrained shots. But yeah, as you start to kind of like scale this, doing more fantastical commercial stuff, some of the stuff that Work showed, only doing prompts can kind of start to fall apart, or at the very least, like fall flat. So I know a lot of the AI optimizers in the audience, including myself, like might not want to hear this. Because adding in reference images can sometimes feel suboptimal or a little bit less predictable or scalable. But as of right now, and for the last 6 months since I've been doing workshops like these and like really testing the models and doing workflows, this kind of application of reference images is really, really hard to beat, in my opinion. Okay, how are we doing on the gens now? Anyone? Did they go through or no? Wi-Fi problem? What is it? Code's not working? I kind of want to just see what you're up to. I'm going to keep pushing because I think you guys can still get value from this, even if we're not all doing it together, hopefully. I hope so. All right. So in theory, your generation should look like this. So as you can see, even from the simplest 1-sentence prompt we did, so we did create an image of the product in the first photo in the same style as the second reference photo. And we can get really fantastic results. And I love showing this technique because it can apply to more than just taking another product photography inspo photo and taking the style. You can do this with like any sort of image that your heart desires. And you can get really creative and make super unique brands and photography styles that no one else has. Like you can imagine going into like Midjourney is one thing that I do often. You find the wackiest photo in Midjourney and just try and see if you can collide the product photo with like this like Midjourney nonsense and just see what comes up. And it can be really, really fun and unique. Also, because we're using GPT-2, you can see like the text is like pretty damn consistent. We're even getting the reflection. That's like pretty good, or at least from a glance. I don't know anyone that would be like looking into the description if you're on like a supplement website, but it looks pretty good in the reflection. I have a couple more techniques I'm going to show you guys. So the next one is product swapping. I'll give you instructions on how to do it all, but if it's not working, just kind of remember this for later. So what you would do is download this image from the Notion, and then you're going to go back to that first white background photo that you have and connect this and the white background photo to another image node. And then you can paste in, I think it's the third prompt, including the booster. So it's replace the two cylindrical products in the second reference image with two of the, and then I have matte black supplement jars with metallic text, but you can do your product description, and replace them with the ones in the second reference image. So again, same process, upload image, create a node, connect them, paste in the prompt. We're going to do GPT-2, high quality, 2K, and then 1x generation, and then hit generate in theory. And while that is running, I have another principle that I want to talk about. So we've already kind of started to employ some of this by like the first thing that we did in this workshop, but it's also going to be very important when we start getting into UGC and starting to make just more images, more campaigns. So I actually have a course called the AI Creative Director where I teach designers and marketers from a wide spectrum of creative abilities how to use AI. And I think when I'm doing critiques, no matter if this is like a creative director that has like 20 years of experience or it's some like marketer that like only knows how to use meta ads, this is like the number one thing that comes up for everyone when I'm trying to like fix a generation or fix a workflow that they're doing. And sometimes I even forget to do it. But essentially, it's work in steps. And all this to say, like, when you're dealing with complex tasks, it's always going to be easier to tackle the problem in steps. So when you ask the model, or even yourself, to do many things at once, your prompt adherence is just going to be lower, and you're going to have more variables to work with. And that's not very fun when doing image gen. So when you work in steps, you're able to nail in every element, like one at a time, and it'll make your life a lot easier. And you can see how this starts to start to bleed into that sword framework that I showed a few minutes ago. So not only are you outlining exactly what you want the final image or composition to have, you develop those assets as much as you can modularly. So that way, if you try to do everything at once and one thing's wrong, but you like the background, and then you try and fix the thing that's wrong, you might lose that background, and it just like is not the best for creative process because you can't maintain things. So this example is one of my favorites, and it's very, very powerful, especially for like designers in the e-com space, and it's very relevant. So let's say you have a new product coming out, and you have the label design done, but you want to see some mock-ups or maybe test it on different types of packaging, or maybe you were the founder of a company, wants to just start doing pre-sales, but you don't want to wait for like the product to come in from China or tariffs or something, and there's like a huge delay. So this is a great way to actually get product photography done without having any product. And I can't tell you how many times I have done this for brands and even myself. So like Portal, for example, this was like a new flavor, or the blue one was a new flavor we were launching. And I didn't have pictures of it yet because it takes a long time to get the labels in, takes a long time to fulfill, then it has to ship to your house. So the product photography that went live on the website was totally AI, and it was done through this process. So the first step in doing this, I'm going to find an image of what my packaging is going to look like. And if you're lucky, that can be very easy to find. But in my case, and oftentimes in the case of my clients, it's not. For whatever reason, it's always like really bad Alibaba photos, or it's like it's a white bottle, but it should be a black bottle. So I just found the next best thing, which is another product that has very similar packaging. And then I just told Nano Banana Pro to just remove the text and make it a plain black plastic jar. Then I took my label up here, which is like literally just a screenshot of the Illustrator file, the PDF. And then, yeah, I cropped out the elements that are not going to be in the end photo, which is very helpful, I must say. And then I just told it what to do. So the prompt here is place this matte black label on the base of the plastic black jar. The label should be nearly the same height as the base of the jar, with a small margin on top and bottom. The large purple Portal logo has a metallic pinkish purple hue. All the other text is white. The color of the label should be the same as the jar, with a smooth matte textural difference, making it reflect light slightly differently. Now, having done this a couple times for my own brands and other people's brands, there are a few things I know that the model gets tripped up on or needs to be communicated. For example, it's not clear from the actual Illustrator file that the label is metallic. So I'm going to mention that it's metallic, and I'm going to tell it the ideal color that it is. I also give some notes on the texture and the color of the label, because although it is a black label and the jar is black, I don't want it to look like it's screen printed on. And oftentimes when you have colors that are like the same like this, it'll just assume it's screen printed, and I don't want that because that's not what it looks like in real life. What else do I do? Yeah, I talk about the margin as well, so like the position of where it is. Because it's such a smooth product, sometimes it'll like put it in like the dead center and like overlap the lid, and we don't want that. And also the prompt is just a little bit more detailed, because if you just were to say, place the label on the jar, which I have tried many times, it will do like, it's like pasting in an image. I always think about this, did anyone do like the peanut butter sandwich test in elementary school? You know what that is? Where basically the instructions are like, make a peanut butter sandwich, and like every 5-year-old is like, put the peanut butter on the bread as the first step, and then the teacher puts the jar of peanut butter on the bread. That's what happens, I find, with the models sometimes. Anyway, moving on. This is what it looks like when you skip a lot of those steps, and you just try and do it all at once. So this result is pretty suboptimal, I have to say. Now I'm using the exact same model. I'm using the exact same prompt. I'm using the exact same label. I'm using the same reference image, but I'm skipping a few steps and trying to do everything at once. So I just basically, I use the same prompts I used last time, but I just added in like remove the text from the first image first. And in my opinion, you can't prompt your way out of this. Like you could try and give it instructions on like, don't show the supplement facts, don't show the side panel, center it, don't squish the text, all that stuff. But I think it's just worth it to take like the extra 5 minutes in the beginning to give yourself, again, those kind of like modular elements to then have like a smoother process. Yeah, and there's all sorts of, this is just one example of how I can go wacky. I've tried this prompt for some other workshops too, and sometimes it'll start to like bleed over. Like it might give you the label, but it'll do it in the color of like that original Armra bottle. Or it'll start to like pull over like performance revival, which is like not what the label says. It just hallucinates a ton because you're asking it to do a ton of stuff, and it's very hard. We have to be nice to our models. Okay. Did I skip something? Oh, okay, yeah, I forgot what we were doing. All right, so the last prompt we were doing was doing the product replacement prompt with this first image here. And in theory, if everyone's computers and Wi-Fi was working, you would get something like this. Did anyone actually end up doing a generation or no? Yeah? Okay. I'm curious, what kind of product did you use? Yeah. Did it work good? Did yours work good?
I just ended up using yours.
Okay.
I tried one and it got a little.
Yeah. Okay. I want to bring this up. So I was doing this workshop a couple weeks ago with some students, and someone had like an Ozempic pen. They worked for like a medical company, and they tried to do it, and it just didn't work at all. So if you notice, the core shape and the body of the portal jar and the reference image are quite similar. Now, was I cheating and did I do this on purpose? Absolutely. The closer your references are in a technique like this to your final desired result, the easier it's going to be for the model to actually listen and replace it. So for example, let's say you wanted to do like product photography of like a lip pencil or like a pen. You're gonna be way better off starting with images like these, or even like a sketch. So you could literally, this is just like a frame with like 2 red squares, kind of mirroring that first reference. You could even do that. And it'll potentially be better than using an image that like just isn't the same kind of like visual weight as the product you're working with. And I think this works really great because the model then, if it's similar enough in visual weight, it doesn't have to like change the scale, doesn't have to like zoom out. If there's any sort of like shadows, it can be mostly the same. If you were doing this, let's say like you wanted to put an object on like a bed or like a cloth, it wouldn't have to change like the way that it interacts with the environment because it's a similar object. Yeah. So I'm not going to claim this is like a technical thing, but you can think like the brain power of the model, you want it to go towards the things that matter, which is like the packaging and the aesthetics. So don't make it try and like fight itself to do a lot of stuff. There's one more exercise that I want to show you guys today. By 12:30, okay. So we're gonna make some UGC. So with UGC, the prompt is extremely important. I'm typically not a big prompter. I usually rely a lot on reference images. I'm a big Mid-Journey girl. But with UGC, it really matters to kind of like list out like what the heck is going on. So I'm going to break it down for you in the SWORD framework that you can go and write your own, and it applies to the product that you're working with right now. Also, this prompt should be in the Notion, again, if you are following along with me. So we have our subject, and let's say this is the target audience, and they're doing an action that the target audience would do. So, you know, if you're doing makeup images, this will be a woman applying makeup. If you're doing like an electrolyte drink, this could be like a man, you know, at the track, like sitting down, a sweaty man, things like that. We also have the, what did I say, object? Oh, the object, yeah. So for this prompt, I'm thinking about Portal, and that's a black jar that I've been working with for this whole workshop. And something I noticed when I first started working with this product, you know, like almost like a year ago, is that if I would tell the models a black jar, it would create something different like every single time. It would have like a ribbed lid, or it would have like a lip, or it would be like curved, or it would look more like a protein jar, like big. And I would do a lot of prompting to try and like get around it, and it would like just never work the way I wanted it to. So what I realized is that the model is really understood what like a candle is, and a candle is kind of like the same shape and visual weight and aesthetic of the Portal jar. So now I just say a matte black candle whenever I'm working with Portal. So if you're working with like a different kind of product, we don't have the time today to go through like what exactly that could be for you. But if you find that it's struggling to like make your exact shape, like for example, like water bottle, like this is a pretty uniquely shaped water bottle. If you say water bottle, it just could be different in a way that's like very annoying to work with. But this is something you can think about. If you run into this a lot working with brands, try and do like an abstraction that the models understand really well. Okay. Back to the where, we have an environment, and again, this is like conducive to like Portal's target audience and the action that they're doing. Next is the orientation. So this can be the same for everyone. This is a candid UGC style, and again, it's going to tell the model to kind of have that casual, not so perfect angle just by saying like candid. There's a lot loaded in that word. For the rendering, you definitely want to say it's an iPhone image. Definitely want to say ultra realistic. Otherwise, you can tell the model like the light and the context that makes sense for the image that you want to make. So if it's like sunrise, sunset, evening time, bright sunlight, you know, if you have like wacky LEDs, you could do that too. And then the directive here is just like make sure it's centered in the frame. Not every prompt needs to have a directive, but I do in this case. So again, we're writing out a UGC prompt. Once you have that done, you can create a node with it, create an image, and you're going to do GPT-2. This time, we can do 9:16. That's going to be high quality, 2K resolution, and just one generation. So now, with the prompt that I showed you, this is the image I got. So very, very realistic. I also think GPT-2 is much better than Nano Banana at this. I know Nano Banana was like state of the art for UGC, but I am a big GPT-2 fan. A few other things I want to note here that I think are really nice. In the prompt, I said quaint New York City apartment. And for those of you that are from New York or spend a lot of time there, this really does feel like a quaint apartment. It doesn't feel too new, it doesn't feel too old, like it doesn't feel too big. Like this is actually like what it would feel like to have a couch in an apartment without having to say all that stuff. You have like the window outside, which is again like super realistic. It's not a very sexy view. It's not being like, oh, it's New York, I'm gonna put an Empire State Building. And I think it's because like saying quaint, it like understands that. Now, if you said luxury, it would immediately make everything like super high windows, probably like a really nice view of like the park or the Empire State Building. So the word that you choose when describing your environment is super important and can just be really efficient too. I also think the decor feels great. It's not too cluttered. And overall, it just feels like a real photo. So what I'm going to do now is pretty much the exact same thing that we did with that original product replacement prompt of those two floating objects. And this was a one-shot. So as you can see, it's maintained all of that realism. And now we have our product in it and has like the proper texture, proper lighting, size, composition. And it was really easy for us because I just said replace the candle on the coffee table. And because the candle was pretty much the same size and where I wanted it to be, this was super easy. Something else you could do, kind of for like extra credit, you could replace the book he's reading or the book on the coffee table with something more relevant. So Portal is like a sleep supplement. One of our biggest audiences is like really like entrepreneurial dudes. Like in the past, I've like changed the book to be like a David Goggins book to like make the ad a little better. You could change like the view from the window too. But yeah, this is a really great way to kind of like customize and get your audience like more aligned with the images that you're showing. How are we on time? All right, 12:40. So I'm gonna start to kind of like close this out. And as promised, I'm gonna show you guys how to do some ads. So again, GPT-2 is uniquely good at this. It has extremely good text coherence and a really good world understanding. So these are two examples that really showcase how simple it is and why this is actually so good and so attractive, as Rourke was saying earlier, to e-commerce companies. So the first prompt is create an ad featuring this product. And all I did was I connected the blue aesthetic image that we made for the second exercise. I connected that to a node and I gave this prompt. So create an ad featuring this product. The tagline should be better nights equal better days. In the background, showcase a scientific diagram of the sleep cycle. The product is an all-natural sleep supplement called Portal, Subtle, Motion, and Tilt. So as you can see, I didn't mention anything about like night sky. I didn't tell it what font to use. I didn't tell it the layout. I didn't even tell it like the benefits. It added some benefits on the bottom here. And you can see it really understands ads, what people want to see. Like this is like the composition that you would expect to see from an ad on Instagram without having to even tell it like optimize for Instagram, You might want to like fix the margins a little bit to fit better on the screen, but overall for a one-shot, this is extremely good. The text is a little bit funky on the like sleep cycles because I generated it in 2K, but if you generate it in 4K, I think it'd be a lot better. But yeah, it goes through like actually what the sleep stages are. And again, I didn't have to tell it like what the descriptions of those things were. The next one I have up here, I just used this photo that I made here and created a node, gave this prompt. So it's create a testimonial ad using this image. The quote should read, "My night times have never been more relaxing," from John M. The company's name is Portal, is an all-natural sleep supplement. Use the uploaded design as an overlay. Do not block the matte black supplement jar with metallic text that is on the coffee table. So all I did was I went to my website and we have a benefits section. I just screenshotted it. It's just like a black background with those three kind of icons and text, and I just added it as like a secondary node. And yeah, it was able to actually pull the logo. I didn't give it the logo. I thought about it. Sometimes I do. But it pulled the logo exactly, even though it was like warped on, like obviously it's on the jar right now, so it's not the exact like shape and size, but this is what the logo is to a T. It also added like all natural sleep supplement under it, which I kind of think it might actually be Googling it in some sense because I have so many versions of this logo lockup online. And then again, that layout is like super conducive to Instagram ads. It's using like a font that also just like makes sense for the brand. I didn't tell it to do like Helvetica, which is the brand font. And it even has a CTA in the place where a CTA would be. And it looks like a CTA. And it says fall asleep faster, wake up better, which is a great CTA. And I didn't have to tell it anything. So this was the workshop. So hopefully what you took from this today, and hopefully there'll be like a recording you guys can watch, but how to take an iPhone photo and turn it into a high quality product photo, how to create editorial product photography from style references, how to swap products into images, how to make UGC, and then how to make ads. And if you guys want to keep up with me or get in contact, you can scan this QR code and it'll take you to like all my links, my Twitter, things like that. But yeah, otherwise, I am more than happy to do some Q&A or also like walk around and help out, which I didn't get to do during the workshop. So thank you guys.